When you think about big trade disputes between the US and Canada, you're probably thinking about things like steel or lumber, maybe even cars. But what if I told you one of the hottest geopolitical flashpoints between these two allies is garbage? Yeah, you heard that right. This is the wild story of how millions of tons of just everyday trash became a huge bargaining chip in a high-stakes trade war.
And it all really boils down to this one number, 3.46 million. That's how many tons of municipal solid waste, we're talking regular household trash, the province of Ontario trucks across the border to bury in Michigan landfills. Every single year. I mean, that is a staggering amount of garbage. It actually makes up more than 14% of all the waste that gets disposed of in the entire state of Michigan.
So, the big question is, why? Right? How on earth did it become more practical, more economical for one of Canada's biggest provinces to ship its trash across an international border instead of just dealing with it at home? Well, the answer is this fascinating mix of economics, law, and, of course, politics.
To really get it, you first have to understand the powerful economic current that created what you can only describe as a river of trash. For decades, a massive price difference has basically built a waste pipeline, flowing straight from the Greater Toronto Area into the Great Lakes state.
Okay, look at this. The difference is it's mind-blowing. To dump 1 ton of trash in an Ontario landfill, it can cost you over $100. But in Michigan, 36 cents. No, that is not a typo. 36 cents. This price, it's called a tipping fee, has turned Michigan into the path of least resistance. It's basically a giant magnet for trash from all over, but especially from Ontario.
And here's the kicker. This is all completely legal. You see, under big trade deals like the USMCA, that's the successor to NAFTA, municipal solid waste is legally classified as a commodity. It's an article of commerce. That means it can be bought and sold across the border, just like lumber or car parts. And that legal framework is what turned a simple state-level price difference into a massive international industry.
But you know, this couldn't last forever. After years of feeling like the region's backyard, Michigan decided it was time to fight back, to stop being known as the local dumping ground. So Governor Gretchen Whitmer's administration came up with a plan, a jaw-dropping 1,289% increase in the state's tipping fee. They want to take it from that measly 36 cents all the way up to $5 a ton. Now, the goal here isn't just to make a few extra bucks, it's to create a real economic deterrent. The idea is to bring Michigan's price in line with the Midwest average and make Ontario think twice before sending its garbage south.
And it's not just politicians in the state capital saying this. This feeling is everywhere. As the Ann Arbor City Council put it, the state has become a dumping ground. And look, this isn't just talk. The numbers back it up. Right now, about a quarter, 25% of all the trash being buried in Michigan's landfills comes from other states and from Canada. And this isn't just about frustration or pride. No, this is about a very real ticking clock. At the rate things are going, experts estimate Michigan has only about 21 years of landfill space left. That's it. So for Michigan, this has become an urgent problem of environmental sovereignty. They are literally running out of room. So, what would they do with all this new money? Well, the fee hike is expected to bring in about $80 million a year, and the plan is all about reinvestment. The biggest chunk, 45%, goes right back to local communities. But a huge piece of it is also set aside to clean up Michigan's 24,000 existing contaminated sites and to seriously boost the state's own recycling programs. Okay, so Michigan makes its move. How does Ontario respond? Well, Michigan's plan to build his economic wall sent total shockwaves across the border. It forced the provincial government into what it started calling a full-blown crisis.
Premier Doug Ford's governments in Ontario started using what they call the Trump threat, this fear of new tariffs or even a complete border shutdown, to declare its own domestic landfill capacity crisis. Their argument is basically, hey, if we can't rely on Michigan anymore, we're going to be buried in our own garbage in less than a decade.
And their solution? It's a really controversial law called Bill 5. It's this massive bill that gives the provincial cabinet some pretty unprecedented power to fast-track major projects by letting them skip the usual, very lengthy environmental assessment process. And one of the main targets for this new power? You guessed it, landfills.
So what you have is this incredible standoff with two governments pursuing totally opposite goals right across the border from each other. Michigan is trying to protect its land and fund cleanups by pushing trash away. At the same time, Ontario is using that very threat to justify bypassing its own environmental rules to rush ahead with new dumps, like the hotly debated York 1 landfill project.
So let's zoom out for a second, because this regional fight over garbage isn't happening in a vacuum. It's gotten all tangled up in the much bigger, much more unpredictable trade war between the Trump administration and Canada.
Just look at how this could all play out. Imagine a scenario. Early 2025, the U.S. hits Canada with broad new tariffs. Total chaos. Now, there might be an exemption for goods that are compliant with the USMCA trade deal, but the whole deal, the entire thing, is up for a mandatory high-stakes review in July 2026. And that review is just looming over everything, turning every single cross-border issue into a potential bargaining chip.
And that's the wild paradox here, right? Because trash is officially a commodity under the MRUSCA, those shipments are actually protected from the big tariffs, for now. But that legal status also elevates the whole problem. It means every single truckload of garbage crossing the Gordie Howe Bridge is now a matter of international trade law, subject to the whims of these huge, high-level negotiations.
So, after all this back and forth, where is this all heading? What's the end game in this geopolitical tug-of-war over trash? Well, the conclusion from analysts on both sides of the border is pretty clear. The old way of doing things is over.
To put it bluntly, the status quo is dead. For decades, Ontario had this cheap, seemingly endless outlet for its waste. That era, it's gone. It's over. Whether it's Michigan's fee hike, or new federal tariffs, or a renegotiated trade deal, the cost of getting rid of trash is going way up, and the political will to keep this cross-border flow going is just evaporating.
Really, the only sustainable way out of this mess is for jurisdictions to start taking responsibility for their own waste. This means building what experts call localized diversion architectures. We're talking about aggressive investment in things like recycling and composting, bringing in pay-as-you-throw systems where you pay for what you toss, and something called extended producer responsibility, which makes the companies that create all the packaging responsible for what happens to it at the end of its life.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question. This whole international conflict started over something we all produce and throw away every day without a second thought. But when garbage becomes a weapon, when landfill space becomes a strategic asset, who's the one that really pays the price? Is it us, the consumer, the taxpayer, the environment, or is it the very relationship between two of the world's closest friends? It's definitely something to think about the next time you take out the trash.